Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I always prided myself on my survival instincts. My mom often said I inherited the sixth sense from my grandmother, a woman who survived many historical events because of this special ability. But I never truly valued it until that fateful night, at a remote rest stop in Texas. The journey from Toronto to Oklahoma City had taken longer than I expected. Originally, I thought I could complete the trip in 3 days, but a snowstorm in the Midwest forced me to change my route. Instead of heading south through Kansas, I had to reroute westward, crossing part of Texas before reaching Oklahoma. By the third night of the trip, I was exhausted. The clock on my phone read 11 p.m. when I saw the sign for Lone Star Rest Stop, a typical Texas name. Heavy rain slammed against the windshield, reducing my visibility to just a few meters. I decided to stop and rest for a few hours, at least until the rain eased. The rest stop was far from the highway, nestled in a barren area with a few old oak trees. The parking lot for large vehicles was nearly empty, except for an old beige RV parked at the far end. I chose a parking spot right under a light pole, hoping its dim yellow light would give me a sense of security in the dark. I still remember how it felt when I stepped out of the car. The air was humid and heavy, carrying the scent of earth and grass. Even though it was October, the temperature was still fairly warm, a typical Texas feature I wasn't accustomed to. The thin sweater I wore from Canada now felt stifling and uncomfortable. Inside the rest stop, it was eerily quiet. A middle-aged man with a tired face sat behind the counter, his eyes glued to his phone screen. He only glanced up at me once before returning to his digital world. I bought a bottle of water, a protein bar, and a large black coffee, hoping the caffeine would keep me awake enough to drive a few more hours if necessary. As I returned to the parking area, I noticed an elderly couple standing next to the RV. They were struggling to shield themselves with an umbrella in the pouring rain while bringing bags of supplies into the vehicle. I approached them and offered to help. "Oh, thank you, dear." "That's very kind of you," the woman said with a southern accent, her gentle smile softening the deep lines on her face. "We're too old to be racing with Texas weather," she added. The husband, with his white hair and neatly trimmed beard, nodded at me. "You're traveling alone, young lady?" "Not very safe, especially out here in these remote places." A warm feeling mixed with a slight unease crept over me when I heard his words, but I quickly dismissed it. It was the concern of an older person. "I'm on my way to Oklahoma to visit my sister. The storm in the Midwest forced me to take a detour through Texas," I replied, helping them bring the last bag into the RV. "We're headed to Oklahoma too. We could be long-distance neighbors," the woman said, her voice becoming excited. "I'm Martha, and this is my husband, Frank," she added. Martha invited me into the RV to get out of the rain and have a cup of hot tea. I had planned to decline, knowing that I shouldn't trust strangers too easily. But there was something about this couple, perhaps Martha's gentle appearance or Frank's sincere eyes, that made me accept the invitation. Inside the RV, it was surprisingly warm and tidy. Family photos were hanging everywhere, mostly pictures of a young boy with a radiant smile in different stages of his life. Martha introduced him as their grandson, and they were on their way to Oklahoma to attend his college graduation. For the next hour, we chatted like old friends. Martha and Frank shared stories about their life in Florida, how they sold their home after retiring to buy the RV and spend their remaining years traveling across the country. They had visited all 48 contiguous states and were planning a trip to Alaska next summer. When they heard about my work in design, they seemed quite fascinated. As the conversation went on, I began to notice small details that made me uncomfortable. How Frank kept glancing at my phone, which I had left on the table. How Martha occasionally interrupted her husband, as if trying to stop him from talking too much. My instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. "I should get back to my car," I said, standing up abruptly, causing a bit of tea to spill. "Thanks for the chat and the hot tea." "Oh, it's getting late and it's still raining. You can stay here tonight. We can head out together tomorrow morning," Martha said, her tone becoming somewhat urgent. Frank nodded in agreement. "We have a small bed in the back. It's very comfortable." The unease I felt quickly turned into real fear. I looked around the RV, realizing that the exit, the only way out, was behind Frank. I quickly declined again, but they weren't planning on letting me leave. My heart raced. I shouldn't have trusted them, shouldn't have stepped into this RV. I repeated my refusal and moved toward the door, but Frank blocked it, standing still. Martha told her husband to let me go since I had my own schedule, her voice gentle yet carrying an odd tension. A long moment passed, feeling like an eternity, before Frank reluctantly stepped aside. I hurried past him, grabbing my phone and purse. "Thank you for everything," I mumbled, not daring to look them in the eye. "Be careful," Martha called as I opened the door. The rain was still pouring as I ran toward my car. My whole body was trembling, not from the cold, but from the overwhelming fear. I opened the car door, jumped inside, and immediately locked all the doors. Only when I felt safe in the familiar space did I dare glance back at the RV. Frank was standing by the window, watching me. When our eyes met, he slowly raised his hand and waved, a faint smile forming on his aged face. I didn't wait another second. Starting the car, I quickly drove out of the rest stop, ignoring the heavy rain and limited visibility. I drove for about 20 minutes before I found a small, old motel on the side of the road. Its lights and crowded parking lot gave me the sense of safety I desperately needed. In the motel room, I couldn't sleep. I wondered if I was overreacting. Maybe they were just a kind elderly couple worried about my safety. The next morning, I woke up after a restless sleep and turned on the TV to check the weather. But instead of the usual cloud coverage and temperatures, I saw the serious face of a local news reporter. An elderly couple was discovered deceased, their bodies found about half a mile from the Lone Star rest stop. According to forensics, they had been murdered approximately 2 days before being found. Police are investigating and stated that this was a targeted killing, as the couple's valuable RV was missing. I froze, unable to believe what I was hearing. The image of the beige RV appeared on the screen, the very vehicle I had been in just hours earlier. The victims have been identified as Frank and Martha Johnson, a retired couple from Florida. According to family members, they were on their way to Oklahoma to attend their grandson's graduation. I slumped onto the bed, my head spinning. With trembling hands, I took out my phone and called the local police. I needed to tell them what I knew. Taking a deep breath, I began to tell my story. 2 months later, the police caught Robert and Lisa Chambers, the couple who had murdered Frank and Martha Johnson, and at least 3 other couples over the past 2 years. Their modus operandi was targeting elderly couples traveling in RVs, killing them, and stealing their vehicles and belongings. Then they used the victims' identities to approach others. I will never forget that fateful night at the Lone Star rest stop, or the unease that saved my life. Now, I have no doubt about my 6th sense. As I drove north, back to Canada and my safe home, I realized one thing. In a world full of hidden dangers, sometimes fear is not a bad thing. Sometimes it's the most valuable warning bell we have, and I've learned to listen to it. I'm Adam, 36, living in a pretty chill city. My life was all about office work, chill evenings with a beer and some movies, nothing fancy. But then, everything flipped overnight. I can still remember the freezing air, the wind whipping through every corner of the street, making everything feel gloomy and blurry. I was driving home after a long day at work. The car clock was pushing midnight, and all I wanted was to get home, take a shower, and crash. Out of nowhere, while driving down this empty street, I saw a woman on the side of the road, waving like she needed help. She was drenched from the rain. Her hands were freezing, like she'd been standing there for ages. I slowed down and pulled over. I felt bad for her. I couldn't just ignore a woman who obviously needed help. When the car stopped, she came over, struggling to walk in the rain, her eyes looking at me all sad. In the dim light from the sign, I could see her face better, maybe in her 30s. Her skin was pale. Her eyes looked tired, and her long hair was all wet, sticking to her forehead, all wrinkled from the rain. She was wearing an old, thick coat, wrapped tightly around her skinny body, her hands still shaking as she pressed against the car window. I quickly opened the car door and rolled down the window a bit, telling her to hop in fast. She said thanks in a tired voice and sat in the passenger seat. She didn't answer any of my questions, just nodded a little, her eyes glued to the window the whole time. I asked for her address, but she just told me to keep going straight. After a bit, I stopped at a gas station to grab some gas and water, and before I left, I asked if she wanted a cup of tea or something warm. She kept staring out the window and didn't answer, like she was too tired to say anything. I finished pumping gas, grabbed a bottle of water, and even got a cup of hot cocoa, then turned around. But when I opened the car door and looked inside, she was gone. There was a small puddle of water on the seat, like she had just gotten up and left. At the time, I didn't think anything was too weird. I just thought the rain had stopped, and she didn't need to keep riding with me. I got back in the car, started it up, and drove home. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and wide awake. I grabbed the keys and headed to the garage to go to the store and grab food for the week. As soon as I sat in the driver's seat and bent down to buckle my seatbelt, my body suddenly felt all stiff and out of it. I slowly turned to look at the back seat, my heart racing, and a wave of fear hit me right away. At the spot where the woman had sat last night, there was no puddle of water as I thought, but a pool of dried blood. The dark red had started to dry and stick to the seat, making a creepy stain. I sat there, eyes wide, my mind racing. How could this be? I clearly remember that nothing weird happened in the car last night. No strange noises, no odd behavior from her. I was so confused, not sure if she was hurt or not. But with how big the stain was, the wound had to be pretty bad. I went back inside and decided to have breakfast first. I mean, I did a good deed, and if the girl left without saying anything, that was on her. I decided I'd have breakfast first, then go clean the car. While I was eating breakfast, I turned on the TV, and then the sandwich got stuck in my throat when I heard the news. In breaking news, Marlene Nelson, the woman who has been missing for a month, was spotted for the first time last night. Highway camera footage shows what appears to be Marlene getting into a black Toyota Camry. Authorities are currently working to identify the owner of the vehicle as part of their ongoing investigation. I called the police right away, and they were at my house 15 minutes later. They asked about the woman from last night and wanted me to confirm if it was Marlene Nelson. I confirmed it was her. I could still clearly remember her face. The police said the highway security cam caught her getting into my car. After that, Marlene Nelson didn't show up on any of the cameras again, like she just vanished. My eyes went wide. I couldn't believe what was going on. After I told them about the blood in the car this morning, the police asked to search it. I agreed right away. No reason to hide anything. I hadn't done anything wrong. Still, the anxiety and tension inside me wouldn't go away. It felt like I was getting caught up in some weird situation I couldn't explain. The police started taking blood samples from the passenger seat to test. When a police opened the trunk, I didn't dare look inside right away. But then, he froze, and the whole place went silent, with only the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. He bent down to take a look, then stared up at me with a horrified look on his face. Suddenly, I got a chill down my spine. I took slow steps toward the trunk. My legs felt like they were going to give out, but I couldn't stop. I bent down and looked inside, and what I saw was unbelievable. The body of the woman from last night, the girl I'd given a ride to, was lying there quietly with no signs of resistance. Like she'd been lying there, just waiting quietly for a long time. Her hair, still wet, was as matted as it was last night. But now the bloodstains on her pale skin made my throat tighten. I looked up at the police, but they didn't say anything, just stared at me with silence and suspicion. Questions kept racing through my head, but I couldn't answer any of them. My life totally changed from that moment on. My work relationships started to fall apart. My coworkers got distant, avoiding me like I was some kind of threat. I wasn't the Adam they knew anymore, just a suspect in some weird case. Outside of work, my personal relationships took a huge hit too. My friends slowly started pulling away from me. They didn't say anything, but I could feel the change in their eyes, in the way they talked to me. It was honestly a really painful feeling. And then, for the next week, I mostly worked with the police, answering questions and giving them all the info they needed. Each time I felt like I was the one on trial, even though I didn't have anything to hide. The tension, exhaustion, and fear felt like this storm that just wouldn't let up, making it impossible for me to chill or feel any peace. Every day I woke up felt like a fight with myself, full of questions I couldn't answer. In the end, the police said I was innocent. The forensic team found a bunch of stimulants in Marlene's system, and her injuries were probably from her losing control. They didn't find any trace of me on her, or any signs of a fight or attack. Part of me felt relieved, but the rest of me still felt empty, like I couldn't shake the fear. I sold my car, moved to a whole new city where nobody knew me, and started over. I never thought being kind would end up turning my life upside down. I am Grace, and I have 2 little kids. One evening over 2 years ago, I was driving to visit my mom in the neighboring town with my kids. Due to work obligations, I set off quite late, around 9 p.m., and planned to stay overnight at my mom's house. At that time, my eldest daughter was almost 2 years old, and I was 7 months pregnant with my second son. As I drove on the relatively empty highway, I started to notice a car behind me. "It has been following me for quite a while, hasn't it?" I mumbled, then focused on driving. After driving a bit further, the car behind me began to honk and flash its headlights. I thought they wanted to pass, so I moved a little closer to the shoulder. But the car continued to stay behind me, constantly honking, which was really annoying. After about 10 minutes of this, my nerves frayed, and I pulled over to the side of the road. The car stopped right behind mine. With a mother's protective instinct, I checked the locks on all 4 doors, quickly grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. A knock on the car window. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. A tall man was looking into my car and signaling for something. He was talking while pointing at the back of my car, and when he saw I wasn't reacting, he gestured for me to roll down the window to talk. I observed his demeanor, my mind racing with thoughts. Should I call the police? Does he need help? Seeing a sincere and trustworthy demeanor from the man, I rolled down the window just a bit, enough to hear what he was saying. "Do you need something?" I asked, sounding quite cautious. "Oh no, I just wanted to let you know that the left rear tire of your car is wobbling continuously. It's very dangerous." His demeanor and tone were very sincere, and I began to feel more at ease. I must have overthought this, I thought to myself. I got out of the car to check the rear tire, but I didn't see anything unusual. I also had no expertise in vehicles. But I felt everything was fine while driving. I looked at the man and asked, "But I'm afraid it won't last much longer," he replied quite confidently. "Let me call roadside assistance or the police, thank you so much," I said, while pulling out my phone to dial. "There's no need to waste time like that, I can help you," the man quickly interrupted me. "It's a simple issue, just tighten the wheel." Seeing that I was still hesitant, the man continued, "I worked in a garage for a few months. This is a simple task." "You seem to be in a hurry, and you have young kids with you, right?" My daughter woke up and unexpectedly called for me, and the situation completely convinced me. After about 15 minutes, the man announced that my car was fine. "Thank you so much. What's your name?" "No problem at all. I wish you a peaceful evening." He smiled, waved goodbye, and walked away. I thanked him once more and continued on my journey. But just after I drove a short distance, I started to feel the wobbling of the tire. The more I drove, the more the car shook, leaving me extremely anxious, while my daughter clung tightly to me and began to cry. I stopped the car again, got out, and checked. "What bad luck," I muttered in frustration. A car coming from the opposite direction stopped. It was the man from earlier. "Is something wrong again?" he asked, concerned. "Well, the condition of the car is more serious. I think I need to call. I must have messed up somewhere. I'm really sorry. Let me take you to the nearest gas station for help." "Oh no, thank you, but..." "It's okay. I also have a part of the responsibility for your car." I decided to decline, but he didn't give me the chance. Once again, I was convinced. He politely opened the passenger door for my child and me. From that moment on, my 2 children and I officially faced the demon. After about 10 minutes of driving, we reached the nearest gas station, but he didn't stop. Instead, he accelerated and sped past it. He remained silent in response to my questions, his face cold and different from the friendly demeanor he had before. I began to feel a sense of fear. I quietly took out my phone, knowing I had to escape and call the police. Suddenly, a strong force yanked the phone from my hand, and I gasped and screamed, "Shut up! I'm not sure I can stay calm. You and your 2 children will soon meet God. Wait until I'm done playing." Each word he emphasized made me feel like I was turning to stone. My breath quickened as I held my daughter tightly, feeling my son kicking forcefully in my belly. I had to find a way to protect myself and my children. After nearly an hour sitting next to the demon, a heavy silence enveloped us as he drove faster and faster, my heart racing to the point of almost breaking. I quietly scanned the sides of the road and the rearview mirror, my body nearly drenched in sweat. At that moment, I quickly opened the car door, curled up tightly around my daughter, and jumped out onto the road. Thank God for protection. My daughter and I landed on the shoulder with soft, grassy ground. My daughter burst into tears, and I held her tightly, unable to get up just yet. I heard the car slow down and then speed off. I knew we were temporarily safe. I checked my daughter's body, breathing heavily as I broke down in tears from the panic. I carried my daughter and ran to the nearest police station, reporting everything I had just experienced. The police quickly contacted medical personnel to check the health of me and my daughter. Looking at the sketch of the wanted murderer posted on the wall, my body suddenly went numb. Zodiac. He was the one who wanted to kill me. Immediately, the police requested to block off the roads that the murderer might take. By the time we reached the spot where I left my car, it had been burned to ashes. He had erased all traces. I was affected by the jump and had a premature birth, but fortunately, I was still able to care for and witness my 2 children grow up. I was placed under police protection and moved to another state after giving birth to my son 6 months later.